Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. And on the podcast today, I've invited Dr. Sarah Bren to talk to us about attachment and knowing whether or not we have a secure attachment with our kids and how to maintain that secure attachment through the process of repair. And we get into some really great details about how to actually say sorry and make amends and talk to your kids when there's been a rupture in your relationship, and the confidence you can feel that your attachment with your kids is strong. So I think you're going to really love Dr. Sarah Bren. You're going to love our conversation. And so before we get into the interview, I just want to let you know a little bit about Dr. Bren. She is a clinical psychologist and a mom of two. She's the co-founder and clinical director of Upshur Bren Psychology Group in New York. And she runs a team of therapists that work with parents, children, and families to help them do what I do, right? Support healthy child development and taking good care of themselves as parents, and also, helping to raise this next generation so they are emotionally healthy. Sarah's also the podcast host of a podcast called Securely Attached, which I highly recommend. I think it's an amazing parenting podcast. I love my podcast, but I also love what she's doing over there and her podcast, and just talking about some of the same things we talk about on our podcast. And so you can go check her out and learn a little bit more about attachment and child development and what's normal and how to take good care of yourself and all of those things. So without any more delay, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Sarah Bren. Hi, Dr. Bren.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I'm Darlene. It's so nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great. Good. Well, welcome to the Become a Calm Mama podcast. I'm really happy that you're here. We're recording, so I just wanted to get right into it if you are ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I wanted to have you on the podcast because I'm a parenting coach, and I talk a lot about helping parents stay emotionally regulated, to build emotional literacy with their kids, so they can stay calm, connected, and then also have boundaries and, follow through and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And not doing it anger, frustration, overwhelm, punishment, pain, right? So the calmer we are, the more we understand where behavior comes from, the easier it is to do those things like lovingly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of that work requires understanding a little bit about attachment, right? And helping parents kind of feel connected to their kids, help their kids feel connected to them. And I came across your podcast and I just loved your work so much because it really focuses on secure attachment. And so that's what I want to talk to you today about. And hopefully my goal for the audience is that they walk away feeling not like, oh my God, I've done everything wrong, but more like probably I'm on a good track here.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're a little off, to give them some strategy. So hopefully it's uplifting in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so too. I like when I find that when I talk to parents about attachment, they often come in with some like misconceptions that actually have led them to feel quite anxious about the attachment relationship and how, fragile it might be and how much pressure they feel to like get it right. Because I get it. There's a lot of information out there and it feels like the stakes are very high because we know that attachment health is predictive of so many good outcomes across many different domains. But, after I've kind of talked to people about attachment, I find that they feel relieved and they're like, oh, okay, it's not that fragile of a system. It's not actually is like, not every single move I make is going to make or break an attachment relationship. It's a pretty robust system, which I think helps people feel like a lot more relaxed about it.
Yeah, exactly. Because when we talk about becoming a calm mama, right, it's like part of that is having some inner trust that I'm okay and I'm doing okay and my kids are okay and this is normal and we're resilient, we can do repair, whatever that is. And that does calm our nervous system because we're not, like you said, anxious and like, what am I doing it right? Are they okay? That
Yeah.
kind of creates that energy in a family that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it also pulls us out of the relationship, right? It brings us into our head and into our own stuff. Um, and the irony is the more we worry about getting it right and like worry about the attachment relationship, the more we aren't in attunement with our kid in that moment, right? Like we're actually kind of exiting the relationship to go be with our worries.
Yeah. Or
And
evaluating, right? Instead of being
mhm.
present, we're like evaluating, almost like a critical judgment of like, how am I doing? And then you're not actually doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay. So you said attunement. So we're going to get into concepts and talk about kind of the whole world of attachment and then how to do that. And attunement is a big part of it. So you'll explain that. But I wanted to give you a chance just to like tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do exactly? And, how did you come to this work? Specifically
Yes.
attachment. Yeah.
So I'm a clinical psychologist, and I spent most of my early career research. I researched attachment for my dissertation, but I was working mostly with adults who had experienced chronic like childhood trauma. A lot of it was relational and attachment related traumas, but I was working with adults, um, and when I had my first kid, I sort of separate from being a psychologist was like really kind of entering the world of like, oh, child development and parenting and all this stuff. And I started to really kind of like look a little bit more into like I was just like, okay, I'm entering parenthood. I want to like learn everything there is to know about parenting. And my son's daycare happened to be run with this particular pedagogy. This is called RIE, Resources for Infant Educators, which is like kind of a philosophy of parenting that's very, it's focused on attunement. It's helping parents and the people who care for the young kids to really be looking at things through the child's perspective and creating environments that a child can be really independent in, that like, at their level. But also that there's a very, very strong emphasis on like caregiving and being really attentive and attuned during caregiving moments. But then outside of caregiving moments, we're really not interrupting the child so much and letting them play and explore their environment without kind of constantly interrupting them. Um, and I was like, wow, a lot of the philosophies of Rye, um, they seem very prophylactic to me for like helping kids develop a healthy attachment system, helping kids develop resilience, emotional regulation skills, distress tolerance skills, inner sense of self that is like competent and confident, all these things that are like really great and would perhaps support, you know, preventing kids needing to like go to therapy for, chronic relational trauma
Yeah. I always
in
say my
childhood.
mission is to heal the next generation in advance. And I think
Yeah.
if we do a really good job parenting in a emotionally literate way and a connected way and building resilience, all those things, that yes, we could have emotionally healthy adults. And
Yeah.
yeah, that, yep.
Really, that was for me. I was like this sort of light bulb clicked, and I was like, if I could help families understand kind of the building blocks of
Mhm.
attachment, health, and child development, and how to kind of create kind of like a family system that is very balanced, because I think sometimes we can go either into like extreme child centric kind of parenting strategies that I think end up creating a lot of stress for families and kids.
Mhm.
And we can go in the kind of opposite extreme of like a really parent centric. And that's usually when there's like something really external driving, when there's some type of personal chaos or like, things going on in our lives that pull us out of being attuned to the whole family system, which happens, like if you have, and you look at postpartum depression, or you look at, family crises, or you lose a job, or there's stressors that happen in our lives that can really interrupt our ability to give what what our family system might want or need, right? And that there's nothing inherently bad about that. Like what I was saying before is like the attachment relationships are really robust. They're we're hardwired to create these relational bonds. And I just I felt like if I could help parents understand what really mattered and tune out the noise of what did not matter because they were holding way too much,
Yeah.
um,
And still are. You
simplify
know, I
things.
saw you've been doing this almost 10 years. And it, yeah, I think the prevalence of podcasts like ours or social media or, the influencers and TikTok and whatever, there's still like so much information and it can be difficult to weed through what's actually the most important or the building blocks, like you said, or the bare minimums that I need to make sure I hit as I raise my kids. It
Mhm.
can feel like diet, it's academics, like nutrition. They have to eat this way, they have to sleep this way, they have to have this much social skills, they have this much academics. Like there's so much pressure on
Yeah,
parents, but yeah, there are some basic things that you can do to ensure emotional health and for yourself as a family unit, right? Like you're saying.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Like, I think when we figure out what helps us feel grounded, connected, where we are able to say, okay, I'm like, for example, when I was saying like, if we've a really child-centric family, and I think a lot of parents fall into this sort of like um, tricky space where it's like, I really want everything to go, quote, right. I want it to be good. I don't, I'm getting all this information and I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do that. And a lot of these really genuinely good pieces of advice contradict each other. But it's really focused on meeting the child's needs. And I'm a big proponent of meeting our kids' needs, but not at the expense of our needs, because when we have a really depleted parent who chronically doesn't get their needs met and chronically kind of prioritizes like somebody else's needs over theirs all the time, what ends up happening is we get burnt out. We can't show up with a lot of bandwidth. And eventually like we kind of will put off our need, put off our need, put off our need until we kind of snap
Yeah.
because we've been running on empty for so long.
Yeah.
And then we go through this whole barrage of self-criticism and guilt and shame for having lost it. And it's like, well, how could we not, right? If we're always on empty, we like it's going to be really hard to be that steady, consistent, reliable parent. And also, our kids do not need us to meet every need that they have. They don't. Um, like I feel like the job of the parent is really much more about like you are steering the ship. You are like zooming out. Your capacity to both zoom out and zoom in as needed is like far more of a predictor of how well things are going to go than your ability to like get it right all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the big picture is really important. Like, what are we doing here and what are we trying to
Hmm.
accomplish, like, as a family? And I talk about that a lot, like parenting goals. And like, my goal was emotional health for my sons. And sometimes that was at the expense of maybe other, like maybe socially they weren't accessing all the play dates or all the sports or whatever, because I was like, I don't have the capacity to manage club sports, or I don't have the capacity to manage a really intense academic environment, because I knew that would require something from me that I didn't have to give, and then I would have this negative impact on my kids where I'm stressed and I'm like, hurry up, get it done. We got to go. Like, I just didn't want to be that way. So, choosing emotional health for myself, for my kids, for my family, so we could be paced in a way that worked for us, it didn't look like super family. It didn't look like as a parenting coach, it's like, you know, people would think, oh, you have these very high achieving children, or something like that. And it's like, well, if that were my goal, then sure, I may have achieved that, but that isn't. I want my kids to have really healthy relationships with themselves and others and
Yeah.
me.
The ironic thing, and I say this a lot, is like, I think it's we live in a culture that deeply prioritizes achievement and values achievement. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, desiring achievement. But the irony is when we focus solely on achievement, we can sometimes create this this barrier to achievement. Whereas if we focus on sort of let's find a really solid foundation, let's build on relational health, let's build on mental health, let's build on helping our child develop a really solid sense of who they are and what they're interested in, and this idea of like kind of prioritizing self-actualization. When we put that first, almost always like achievement follows. It's like a byproduct.
Yeah.
But when we hardline it on achievement, we like miss all these foundational building blocks that actually leads to that capacity to achieve and find joy and grit and resilience in pursuing something hard. But it's like sometimes we like we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on like one piece of an outcome versus like how do you build someone who's capable of achieving that by default.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool that we can have that influence and get the same results, but in a way that's really emotionally respectful, right? And, really building up instead of get here, get here. And I think academics is one area of achievement that parents feel stressed about, but also like social achievement, just like
Mhm.
being the kid that's well liked and being the kid that's, you know, invited to the things and like, you're in on the, like, all the goss and what's going on and all that. And
Yeah.
that can, it just puts pressure on our kids in a way that doesn't really serve them because we're like attached to their outcome in a way that I could think creates anxiety for you and them. Yeah. So there's like different things we can focus on as parents, I think accidentally. Like,
Yeah.
y- you know,
I also think we're trained to,
yes. Yeah.
implicitly and explicitly as parents. I think we have gotten the message you are you are your child's like resume is a referendum on how good of a parent you are. And I don't
Mhm.
like, not just their activities and their where they're excelling at, but also these more soft things like, where do they live in the social hierarchy? Where do they live on the sports team? Where do they live in the neighborhood? And with it, we it's I don't I mean, I think we all grapple with it as parents. I have two kids and even though I'm like constantly trying to like help parents put their priorities in place, like I get sucked up into the, oh my God, but oh, like they really want to do this thing and I don't want to like not have them do this thing. So now like, oh my gosh, they're overscheduled. My kids are so overscheduled. And then I'm always saying, do less, do less. But it's hard. It's like it's hard to not be in the sauce.
Yeah, it
Um,
really is. And so I think that's why conversations like this are so valuable because we want to bring it back to are we are we hitting these points down at the base foundational level? And
Mhm.
then if you are a little overscheduled or, diet spin off or, sleep spin off or, whatever is going on, um, you can go, okay, let's actually pause and reset back to kind of the I always think of it as bare minimums. Like what is at the base level is that we have got to make sure we're hitting on and resetting our
Yeah.
families. And that's why it's good to have these conversations.
Hmm.
Um, so I want to talk about attachment. I was going to share with you that I came to parenting work in general because I was a very reactive mom and it was shocking to me because I wasn't like a reactive hothead person. And then I had this very dysregulated, didn't know the word back then, but like 4-year old. And he was just like a hitter at school, throwing sand. I mean, just totally out of bounds. He's being aggressive with his younger sibling. And I was just beside myself. And I started to get support reading parenting books. And I read Parenting from the Inside Out,
Mm.
which
And
is,
Siegel, love.
one of Dan Siegel and Mary Hartzell's first, it's one of or Dan Siegel's earlier books. And when I read the section on attachment, I it scared me a little
Mm.
bit because I could see that I was, you know, being aggressive and like scary to my son. And I was like, okay, this is definitely going to have an impact on him. And it may already be having an impact. I started to see a therapist and get some support. He and I went to therapy, and like, as a little 5-year old, but we did attachment therapy really. And
Mhm.
it was so good for me to realize that, like, I kind of started to understand my own trauma and how some of the things that I was doing to protect myself as an adult, when I became a parent and I felt like he was attacking me, or I was under, in a fight, flight, or survivor mode, because he was like, I kind of made him an enemy in my mind and I was a victim,
Mhm.
but then I didn't want to be a victim. So I powered over. And I just realized, like, oh, I have so much healing to do in
Mhm.
my own trauma background and attachment disorder, to, disorganized attachment with my own family. Um, so it just impacted me in such a positive way eventually. um, and I think for parents, it's helpful to talk about kind of like, what is the goal? Like, what does secure attachment mean? What is
Mhm.
that? And then sort of some of the pitfalls that like could happen if we parent in certain ways, or if we find ourselves parenting in certain ways, and then give some strategies to reset that. So I
Yeah.
wonder,
Well,
yeah,
I wonder if it first would just help
yeah,
to kind of explain like what is attachment?
yeah.
Because I
That's what I
think
was going
it's
to start with.
very,
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of I think people think it's a lot more complex than it is. When we
yeah,
talk about attachment, we're simply talking about this this sort of hardwiring um, that human beings are born with that creates this instinct to form a bond that allows for physical and emotional proximity to a caregiver. And it's really just to increase our chance of survival, right? It's kind of like how ducklings imprint on the mama duck, right? You don't learn it.
it's
It's
biological. Yeah,
biological. We are hardwired to seek out this proximity to our care provider. And everybody attaches, right? We all are attached.
yeah,
The question is, and what we look at when we're looking at attachment science is, what is the quality of that attachment relationship, right? So we can be securely attached. There are different types of insecure attachment. And the idea is, one, the more a parent is able to kind of consistently and reliably, well, I should say, the more the child believes the
yeah,
parent will consistently and reliably meet their needs most of the time for safety, for survival, right? These are basic needs, not they're going to give me the cookie when I want the cookie. It's I'm when I'm cold, they will help me be warm. When I'm scared, they will help me feel safe. When I'm tired, they'll help me get cozy and go to sleep, right? Like these are sort of basic needs.
right. It's
Um,
like a little, like an animal, right? They need to eat, they need to sleep, they need to stay warm, they need to be safe from predators. It's like kind of this
mhm.
really basic uh biological need to survive in
Yeah.
a world. When I always like to remind parents, like, your children know they're not big. They know they're little. They
Mhm.
know they're not supposed to know everything. They know they're young, and then they know you're old. That's like,
Mhm.
there's a natural looking to the adult to lead, to guide, to soothe, to be safe, right? All of that. So that is
Mhm.
like, yeah, hardwired. I love that.
Yeah. And so a couple things that people kind of often misunderstand about attachment is, one, because this is a biologically hardwired system, it's pretty robust. It doesn't need to be delicately held and constantly nurtured in this like very careful, intentional way. Do we want to be intentional about our parenting? Absolutely. Do we want to be attuned to and connected to and curious about our kids and attempt to meet their needs as much as we can? Yes. But at a very basic level, like, we are going to make mistakes. Like, think about just even when a baby is born and you're holding your baby and they're crying and you have no idea why they're crying. And, you give them a bottle, but they were cold. Or you try to burp them, but really they really wanted their diaper changed, right? Like those are misattunements. That's us missing them, not meeting their need, right? And it's totally normal and part of this dynamic. In fact, the way I often describe it is like, so when a baby's born, their sense of like where they end and where their mother or their primary caregiver begins is completely fused. There's just, it's blurry. Like I'm me, you're you. We're just like this symbiotic blob, right? And it's through these very organic and appropriate and natural misattunements of the parent to the child's needs that there's like this space that starts to build between the two of them where like, oh wait, you're not me and I'm not you. You're not feeling these like we're two distinct human beings. Whoa. And it's this misattunement that creates what is
Identity.
eventually the relationship, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am me, you are you, we are two separate people, and the space between us is the relationship. And the quality of that relationship is the attachment relationship, right? And so we get in our heads, I think, that we're not supposed to misattune to our children lest we damage our attachment relationship with them. And that's not the way it works, right? Like
Right. Or that it's
misattunements.
always precarious. Like
Hmm.
I'm I always have to be working to secure it or something.
Right.
Yeah. Like
Yes.
it's
It's the
not
default
that.
mode. We
Yeah.
just don't want to like actively derail it.
Yeah.
But barring things happening that make it so that it's really hard for us to regularly and reliably meet their basic needs and be a source of comfort and safety. It's like Dan Siegel says with the four S's. Do I help my child to feel safe, to feel seen, and to feel soothed? And that will lead to a secure relationship. But not all the time. Like there are times where we are going to be like, we're going to lose it. Like, and we're not going to be feeling very safe. We might
Yeah.
even feel scary to them when we're yelling. We might not see them in this moment. We like really miss them. Like they're feeling X and we're totally focused on Y and
Yeah.
they're feeling unseen by us. There's times where they're going to be in distress and we aren't going to be capable of soothing them. And that's okay, right? What's really important more than anything is that we recognize that. And in the moment, like, or after the moment, there's a coming back together and an acknowledging of that. Like, oh, you were feeling so sad about something that happened at school. And I kept thinking it was about something going on with your sister. And I just didn't get it. And you kept trying to tell me, and I really didn't get it. And I'm sorry. I didn't put that together. And now I get it.
Mhm.
Or, oh, you know what? Earlier this morning when we were having trouble getting out of the house and I just totally lost it. I was probably really scary in that moment. Like, I got loud, I got mean. It was not my best moment. And I'm sorry. How are you feeling? Like, tell me
Mhm.
about your day.
Yeah.
So it's not that we never mess up, it's that we repair when we mess up
Mhm.
because that is actually what creates that secure relationship, right?
Yeah.
That we can be two human beings together and we're gonna mess up and we're gonna believe that we'll come back together and feel the good again.
Yeah. Well, I think too for kids, like if you don't come back and talk about it, they're self-centered, like the way they see they're pretty sure they
Hmm.
did something wrong or that was on them or like they're not like they kind of take the responsibility on for
Yeah, they can be
themselves.
egocentric, right? They kind
Yes,
of
but
like
not in a like bad way. There's just the way they're
no,
built.
that in like if something happens, somehow I am responsible for how it happened.
Yes, yeah. And so when we go back and we say, no, that was on me, or I missed that cue, or, I wasn't in my calm body, however explain it, helps the kid go, okay, I'm not like misunderstanding the world.
Hmm.
I had
Yeah,
a
my
sense.
reality is being understood. That talk about
Yeah.
being seen, right? Like,
Yes, yes.
oh, you do see it from my perspective. You don't always
Hmm.
agree with my perspective, right? Because that's the thing is like, and I also think it's another misconception about attachment is that for a secure attachment to really be, established, our kids need to feel like there's not a lot of friction in our relationship and that we're always getting along and that things feel good. And the reality is like that's not required for a secure attachment. It's sometimes us holding a limit and being a really sturdy parent who's very predictable and saying, no, I'm not going to let you do that. When I say no, that really means no. And you get to be upset, but it's not going to change my mind about this thing. And you can be mad at me. And actually, if you keep screaming at me, I might even lose it with you because I can't take being screamed at for oh so long. And I might just like, I only have so much bandwidth. Like, and then we come back and say, okay, sorry, I lost it. We need to figure out a way for this, and this to work better. Like, what can we do? We can collaborate. We can come back together. We can be productive and, we can problem solve together. But I'm never going to let you do the thing that I'm not okay with you doing, right? Like, whatever it is,
When our child feels angry with us or upset with us, that doesn't mean they are insecurely attached. I think is what you're
no,
really
yeah, definitely
articulating,
not. In
right?
fact,
Like it's
when
more
they feel
secure.
safe throwing their vilest muck at us is when we really know, oh, you're
You,
not worried I'm going anywhere.
yeah,
Like
you're so safe that you're
you feel
willing
very
to
secure with me.
act this way. Yeah. But we can uh I see this sometimes in like the repair when it's not really an acknowledgement of maybe how people behaved. It's a little bit more like, I'm sorry, let's get candy, or, let's just, and that's not necessarily the behavior isn't wrong to go get something sweet. It's about kind of pushing it under the rug and trying to soothe with
Hmm.
like gifts or treats or pleasure and not really kind of
Right.
addressing what happened. And that can make the kid again feel like, okay, so this is how it works. Like you get mad at me or something goes wrong and then I get ice cream and that's
Right. Well, it's like, well, what are we repairing, right?
yes.
If you're thinking about it in terms of like our goal is to have everything feel good, then in theory, repairing would be getting back on that good train.
Hmm.
But if what we're repairing is the relationship, there was a rupture, we felt like we weren't seeing each other or we weren't feeling safe with each other or we were butting heads or we were in a moment of like yuck with each other. What we want to repair is that.
Yeah.
And so it means we talk about that. We say like, "Ooh, that was a tough moment. That was not my best. You weren't
Hmm.
your best. We like how can we get back up to us? Do you
Yeah.
need a hug?"
Hmm.
Like, I don't know. I think there are, and it depends also on kids' ages. It's like there's a whole spectrum of how you do this depending on how old your kid is. But like if you've got little kids, a lot of it is just like coming back into that place of being connected and soothing and naming it and moving on with them, right? Like
Yeah.
coming back together and like using developmentally appropriate language and then moving on. When you have older kids, a lot of it is like stuff gets bigger, stuff gets messier. A lot of it has to happen in different moments. Like I
Oh,
often
for
say,
sure.
like there's the during, there's the after, and then there's the before the next time.
Hmm.
And the during is not a time for repair.
No.
It's the after can be a time where we do repair work. And sometimes it could be a long time after. Like we
Yeah.
both have to really cool off.
Yeah,
And
this is a
we,
funny thing that happened to me. I have 19 and 21-year-old boys, and we were going on a vacation. So that moment when you get everybody into the car and like for an airplane flight, so, there's
mm,
kind of a lot of tension going on in a
oh
family.
yes.
So we get in the car, and my husband was like being really sweet. And he's like, does everyone have their IDs? Because they're older, right? So they carry that. Does everyone have their chargers? And they're like, yeah. And then, does everyone have their bathing suits? And then my younger son was like, no. We're going on a lake vacation, like to a lake. So he definitely needs his bathing suit. And for whatever reason, I know now, but like that, him saying no, I made it mean a bunch of things.
Hmm.
He doesn't care about this vacation. He's not gonna. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, "What?" I just in the car screamed so loud, and then I was like, "How could you not have? That's the most important thing." While my husband's turning around and going back to the house. And then because then he was like, "No, I don't need it." I was like, "You absolutely need it. We're going back." I mean, I just really lost it. And I'm a calm mama. I've been doing this a long time. And why I wanted to share it is because then he got his thing. We're in the car, and then my husband turns to me and he's like, you need to apologize, otherwise it's going to be tense for like this whole like travel day, And I was like, yeah. Oh, he's all calm mama, like I'm like, okay, thanks a lot, And so then I apologized, and I knew I was real hot still. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like wanted to placate my husband, make nice. I don't know. And I was like, hey, Sarah yelled. And then I immediately was like, but listen, you really needed to get your baby. I was still really
Mm-hmm.
hot. And he's like, yeah, whatever. He was also tense and wasn't ready. And
Mm-hmm.
then we were sitting in the airport. He's sitting next to me and kind of like pushes my shoulder a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and like, kind of nudges me. And I look at him and it's Sly. And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I was just in it. And he's like, it's fine. It was just really loud. He's like, you shocked me. It was just really loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I get it. I was like, I just didn't think you cared about this trip. I made it mean that. And he's like, no, I actually just really forgot. And we could have this really great conversation. It was
Right.
genuine. And I think that attunement, when I think of it, is like kind of finding that place where we can go to the repair. I'm ready. You're ready. We can like have a conversation.
And it requires you to be paying attention to your own readiness, but also to their readiness and waiting for it to sync up and not forcing it, right? Knowing there's that trust piece. Like we will come back to a place where we're both ready to repair.
Yeah.
And I don't need to force it because I'm ready if he's not ready, or if he's ready and I'm not ready. I have to really say, like, I hear you. I need a minute still, and
Yeah.
do the work on your own to get ready, like to really move out of rage and into that softness
Mm-hmm.
and be able to then go into, because repair is vulnerable work. You
Yeah.
can't be mad and repair because like different systems of the brain and nervous system have to be on, right? Like if you're in fight or flight, you you're not going to have a good authentic repair. You might be able to say the words, but it won't. Our brains and bodies are smarter than that. They don't, words don't fly with the nervous system, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you need to feel it and feel it in your body because his body is also scanning your body for cues of either being in fight or flight or being in sort of the opposite of fight or flight, which sometimes we call it like rest digest, but also sometimes we call it safety and connection. So this is like our sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight, and our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest digest or safety connection. And you really have to be out of fight or flight fully and in your parasympathetic system
Yeah.
to be able to feel connection with another person and feel that softness and feel that empathy and feel that perspective taking of, oh, what was it like for you when I did that? Oh, that didn't feel good. Okay. And I could share with you what it was like for me when you said that thing that triggered me. And okay, here, but all of that processing has to happen in that safety of the relationship, right?
Yep.
You can't rush it. You can't
Yeah.
fake it. You have
Yeah.
to
No.
just get there first and
Mm-hmm.
then go in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I were making that conversation mean I had screwed up my relationship with my son, like, oh, now it's over or whatever, then
Mm,
that would put a lot of pressure on the repair.
yeah.
It wouldn't really be fair to him or to the relationship. But also, I don't know, I would just be so anxious about like these breaks. And so when you have, you're new to parenting or you're new to this kind of work, it's like trust is so important. Like trust the strength of the desire for the child to be in connection with you. Even
Hmm.
teens, they
Yeah.
desire to be in relationship with their parent.
Hmm.
They want repair. They want genuine repair. You want it too. You want to be close and just kind of keep working towards that and not making these ruptures mean it's all over. And
Right.
I was going to say something about like the timing
Hmm.
because I've noticed that sometimes if a parent is really needy for the feeling of goodness back again,
Hmm.
they want to like make repair fast, maybe when the
Hmm.
child's not ready or maybe when they're not ready. And that is like just so they can feel better. I think that's like the ice cream thing I was trying to say. It's like, okay, let's just go get ice cream. It's like, I don't,
Right.
this is so uncomfortable. I want to move past it really fast. That is if I just
Hmm.
did that in the car. Yeah. Okay, I'm so sorry. But not really
Right.
getting quiet and letting him get a little quieter and then connecting for real on repair.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is hard because especially because you were saying earlier that you came into parenthood with a sort of an attachment blueprint
Hmm.
that might not have been particularly secure, right? If you have experiences, and maybe it will be helpful if I sort of explain what I mean by an attachment blueprint. But basically, this idea is our initial attachment relationships create sort of a blueprint that we then use to anticipate how other people will receive us, respond to us, meet our needs in the future, right? So if we have an early attachment relationship that's secure and we build this secure foundation, this blueprint that we then take with us outside of our initial attachment relationships into other relationships, right? Maybe it's my kindergarten teacher, maybe it's my peers in elementary school. Then we're gonna, and also this is a living, breathing sort of blueprint document that gets edited, right? Like if I have a really tricky, challenging peer experience for a couple years, that's going to edit my blueprint, right? It's going to make me maybe a little bit less secure in thinking people are going to, see me, meet my needs,
Right. It's
make
like
me
if
feel
we
okay.
think about the world as being like out to get us, or think about the world as unsafe, or think about people
Hmm.
aren't trustworthy, or
Right.
right, these kinds of thoughts that kind of get embedded into the way
Hmm.
we
And to
view
our
relationships.
security of our relationships with others. And
Hmm.
so, but I do, so yes, we know that like these early attachment relationships have a big impact on the blueprint. So but that's not the only relationships that will inform that blueprint. But also, that blueprint, just like it's editable by other relationships, if you have historically had an insecure pattern to relationships in your life, um, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm definitely going to pass that on to my kids. And it's like, I'm doomed. It's fixed. And the reality is this attachment is not fixed. And when we talk about attachment style, which is really kind of a misnomer because it's not like there's this one fixed style, each individual relationship is going to have its own quality of attachment, right? It's just that there tends to be patterns because if we have this blueprint that we're using, it's going to front like load that pattern and we have to override it or we have to be in a relationship with someone who helps us override it by feeling really safe. So if you have a history of attachment patterns that were less secure, it's something that we can bring into our relationship with our kids. So for example, if you're in the car and you yell at your kid and then this this sort of blueprint you're using like, "Oh my God, if I shake this boat, we're all going to it's never going to we're going to damage
We're gonna
things." Like,
capsize or
right?
something.
Like
Yeah.
if I don't expect repair after rupture, I'm not going to expect it now either, right? Whereas if I start to practice repair, I can rewrite my blueprint and say, oh, wait, no, we can do this. We can get through these tough moments and feel safe again with each other versus saying, well, once you go this way, it's over. Or, you know, or like if you have more of an avoidant attachment, it's like, no one's going to meet my needs. So I have to meet them all by myself.
Yeah.
Um, and so going into that safety and connection and intimacy and vulnerability is like very threatening, right? It's like, we don't go here. That's not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing good happens in that space. So it's in understanding what are some of the blueprints that we might have from old early attachment relationships and how might they be informing the way we're showing up with our kids. And actually research really does show that when parents who have, you know, like there's a very, very famous attachment research, body of attachment research that looked at, so a parent before they got pregnant or like when they were pregnant, what their attachment systems, what their patterns of attachment were, like if they were securely attached or insecurely attached. And then they looked at how much that attachment style was predictive of what their child's attachment style was at 1 year and 18 months. And it was like 70% prediction rate of like what the parent's attachment style would be, 70% predictive of what the child's attachment style was. But then they looked at like, okay, so what's happening with the 30% that aren't matching? Why? And of the parents who were insecurely attached and who had secure children, or well, the relationship between the parent and child was measurably secure. They were looking at like what was the factors that helped parents to have a different style of attachment with their child than they carried before they had kids. And one of the biggest predictors was a parent's capacity to, they called it it's a capacity for reflective functioning, which basically means our ability to like pay attention to and be curious about my internal experience and why it's happening, and the internal experience of my child and why it's happening. So being curious and self-reflective and reflective of another is one of the most important things that we can do to shift that blueprint and get out of that autopilot, and not bring all those like, you know, old patterns into this new relationship. And I think that that is like the most hopeful and empowering piece of data, because it's like we are not doomed to repeat the past. We can, and the coolest thing is that reflective functioning is just a skill. It's a
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness skill. It's something you can learn and something you can get better at. It's not like, oh, you got to be born with it. Like no one's born with reflective functioning. There are no reflectively, no babies are reflecting on this stuff. We learn it and we practice it and we get better at it. And so if you're going to do one thing to improve your attachment relationship with your child and with other people in your life, is to build that skill of being curious. Like, why am I having this reaction? First, I have to notice, ooh, I'm feeling really frustrated. Like in the car, driving to the airport, you're like, in the moment, you're just hot, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then you looked back and you were like, why did I have such a strong reaction? It's like, oh, one, I noticed I had a really strong reaction and I was not defensive about that. I just was curious. I gave myself some grace and
Yes,
I
lots of
was
love.
curious why. And it was like, oh, because I thought I read into that statement he made to mean he didn't care about this trip. And I've been working really hard to get this trip off the ground. And so now I'm aware of why I got upset. And then I'm curious about his internal experience. Oh, what was he thinking? Maybe he was like embarrassed that he forgot. And maybe he, was scared I was going to get mad at him. And maybe he was feeling, you know, rushed about something else going into this trip, and he completely forgot to pack the bathing suits. And now he's like, oh, I feel a little silly now. And so that ability to be curious about softens us. It allows us to build that safety in our relationship, that ability to make mistakes and come back together. Like that's what really I think is going to be far more impactful in creating healthy, secure relationships with people in our family and outside of our family for that matter, than than any sort of like quote parenting rules, you know?
Yeah, it's so true. It's like I always ask, what did I make that mean? Like, what am I making
Hmm.
this behavior mean about me, about my kid, about what other parents think? Like, it helps me kind of tap into, I know that I am in my head about something, which is why I'm reactive. And so let me kind of give myself some guidance, soothing, perspective taking about those thoughts and see if I can shift them around. And sometimes, a lot of times, the shifting can come from that compassion piece of the other person. Like, okay, this is what I'm making it mean. This is what's going on. Like you said, what is their reason? What's going on for them? Why are they behaving this way? What could it be that has nothing to do with me? Or,
Yes. Yes.
what could it be that has nothing to do with my parenting or his personality or whatever those
Mhm.
kind of factors that I can put in really easily.
Yeah, what's the
So,
most generous interpretation?
yeah.
Like for ourselves and for our kid, right? Like,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because to create a generous interpretation, you have to go to a blueprint,
Hmm.
right? Where you received generous interpretations of your behavior, right? Where someone said, oh, you did this thing, but there's got to be a reason. Like, what, help me understand what's going on for you.
Yeah.
And if we didn't get that as a kid, it's hard to know how to do that as an adult. And it is definitely learnable, right? And it often starts, like I will often say, like, if you do have sort of a blueprint that you're working with that's not very secure, um, it's the first thing, not if you want to fix the one we have with your child, you actually first have to rewrite your own blueprints. Like, how do you talk to yourself? Are
Mhm.
you giving yourself the benefit of the doubt? Are you being curious? Are you being non-judgmental? Are you having compassion? Are you taking a multifaceted like look at why you are doing or feeling a certain thing? And when you do that, when you practice doing that with yourself, it makes it a lot easier to do it with your kids.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. And that's like, for the listeners that listen to this podcast all the time, we do calm, connect, limit, set, correct. That's this calm mama process. And calm
Mhm.
is all about us. And we really can't get to connect, deep, true connection with our kid until we are completely calm and connected within ourselves. And that is such a good, like, the way you described it is really so helpful, that generous interpretation of
Mhm.
yourself. And, you know, I was like, what would your best friend say or ask? Like, can you be as kind as that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful for you to be here. And I'm sure everyone's going to want to listen to your podcast, which that's great. I love that. So
Mm.
tell us about your podcast. Tell us where people can meet you. And then you have some really cool free resources on your website that I wanted to guide people towards.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This is lovely talking with you. So I have a podcast called Securely Attached, where we talk a lot about the science of attachment and the ways it shows up in parenting and child development and parental mental health. um, and so that can be, anywhere you stream podcasts, you can find Securely Attached. And my website, drsarahbren.com, also has a lot of resources for parents. And one of the, like, there's tons of like free resources that people can find on there. And I have some parenting courses as well. But one that might be particularly relevant to our conversation is we have like this guide called the 4 Pillars of Attachment. And it's, if you go drsarahbren.com/secure, you can
Hmm.
get that for
Yeah. We'll
free.
link that in the show notes and send it to everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
It's really
Thank,
a good resource for sure.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
so happy to know you're doing your work out there and influencing the parents and yeah, being on the same mission, right? Healing the next generation in advance. That's
Yeah.
if
That
we
is so
could.
my goal. I love that way you put it because it's true. I feel like we have to start with ourselves and then we can work on our relationships with our kids and then we'll raise a different generation.
Yeah, that's like what I'm hoping for.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
why we do what we do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Yeah. It was so
Thank
great to
you.
meet you. Hey, Mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do 2 things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that again at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful practical parenting strategies just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.